That question remains unanswered after a 38-24 win Sunday against the Cleveland Browns. And don't let the double-digit score fool you. This game was undecided until the final moments. Cleveland has lost every game this year, and the Lions couldn't put them away until DeShone Kizer was bounced from the game with an injury. There's no getting around that. They were outplayed for 3 quarters by a team that has lost 26 of its last 27 games. Cleveland did whatever it wanted, especially on offense, where they've otherwise been garbage this season. They needed fewer than 3 quarters to set a season high in rushing. They racked up 400 total yards for just the second time all year. The Lions just weren't very good against the league's worst franchise. But listening to them describe what happened after the game, you would have thought it was Cleveland that is in the thick of a divisional chase. And not, seriously threatening 0-16 for the second straight season. The Browns probably got better athletes than 25 out of the 32 teams in the league, safety Glover Quinn said. They got a lot of first-round draft picks. They got talent, they just haven't won a bunch of games. Quinn normally has a way of putting things in perspective, but this was not one of those times. Cleveland might have some good players, but that's a terrible team. I suppose he and the rest of the guys were just saying what they had to about a bad team before moving along to a divisional showdown next week against the Bears. What are they supposed to say? The Browns are hot garbage. And Detroit should be embarrassed they needed 2 fourth-quarter touchdown passes from Matthew Stafford to put them away. But they don't need to say it for it to be true. Which brings us back to the question everyone is asking. The Lions are 5-4 and just 2 back of the Vikings in the NFC North. But are they really any good? They weren't today. They haven't been most of the season. But that question, are the Lions good? Also misses the point. Which is they don't have to be good to win the division, and they especially don't have to be good to make the playoffs. Their schedule is littered with bad teams. Maybe not as bad as the Browns, but certainly more flawed than the Lions. There's just one winning team left in the final 7 games, and that's Minnesota, whom the Lions have already beaten, and now get at home on Thanksgiving, a day they've dominated since Jim Caldwell's arrival in 2014. In fact, this is Caldwell's month. The Lions are 10-3 in November since his arrival, which is a league best. No, really, it is. They've always been better in the second half than the first under Caldwell, and they've always had a winning record in those final 8 games. Only once did they win fewer than 6 of those games. And they've never faced a second-half schedule this bad. Meanwhile, as the schedule gets worse, the Lions are getting better. Left tackle Taylor Decker made his debut as part of a rotation against Cleveland and held Myles Garrett without a sack. Kenny Golladay came back against the Browns too and caught back-to-back third-quarter passes totaling 64 yards to set up Theo Riddick's game-tying touchdown. His return unlocks a whole new dimension of the playbook. And then Eric Ebron finished off the comeback by beating Derek Kindred for a 29-yard touchdown. He's been getting the most separation of any Lions receiver or tight end this season, and if he starts turning those into catches, this offense becomes something else entirely. He's an unusual talent in that regard because of the fact that he's a big guy that can run, Coach Jim Caldwell said. You have to figure out how you're going to treat him. Whether you're going to treat him like you typically cover those kinds of guys with linebacker-type guys or strong safeties. When he's playing well, he can create mismatches. When he's not playing well, then obviously they win in that regard. But he played well. The Lions had problems against Cleveland, with the offense starting slowly once again, and the defense getting lit up by a Browns offense that had been laughable. They made DeShone Kizer look like Cam Newton. They weren't perfect. But against this schedule, they don't have to be. They just have to be good enough. 2 weeks in a row, they were. And there's no reason to believe they'll slow down anytime soon.